Welcome to the KP Podcast, where we talk about the business of real estate. A podcast about leveraging opportunities, growing your business, and experiencing financial freedom. Here are your hosts, Keith Anderson and Peter Kamboukos.
All right, everybody, welcome to the podcast. We're coming to you here from the forum and the KP studios. I'm Pete with our co-host Keith. Keith, how's it been, man? I know you did the last podcast with JD. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already depressed that you're back, so it's fantastic.
Thanks a lot, bro. I'm in here. I was like happy to see everybody. Good to be back, rested up, and then you got to go rain on my parade.
I've never seen someone get so many compliments over two things in my entire life. I guess if you go to the beach, you should expect, wow, you lost a lot of weight. Wow, you look as tan as possible. Those are the two compliments I heard over and over again.
Hey, that's what we're shooting for, right?
Seriously.
Remember, people, you gotta take some breaks out there and recharge, right?
Yeah, no. Well, today is something really cool, guys. For those of you guys that are following a lot of our stuff, we just did a pretty large market update a little while ago, and a big part of that, we got a ton of questions just on market conditions and just investing conditions and just general overview of the market as a whole. And people are always intrigued because everybody wants to know what's going on, how's it happening. Fear is always rampant all the time. It doesn't matter if it's going great, then people are scared it's going to stop going great. And if it's going horrible, people are worried about it getting even worse. So there is no place in our culture or economy without fear. And so what we want to talk about today is just diving in a little bit, maybe helping share some confidence in certain things or bringing light on fear that they should be worried about and things like that.
Yeah, we'll see what it is. But yeah, today's topic comes from questions, and we like to do that in the market update, like Keith mentioned. Questions we're getting a lot from agents or clients or both. And in this case, I would say both. And that question is, are housing prices too high?
Well,
are we looking at, is this thing going to crash? Is this sustainable? Did we run too far, too fast? What's going on?
Well, my answer is maybe, Pete. Again, one of our favorite words.
A definite maybe?
Definitely, possibly, it could be maybe.
It depends.
It really does depend. Because to the average consumer, they would probably say, yeah, prices are way too high that are trying to buy the house because they're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah, but sellers, are they? No, right. I mean, are they saying that it's too expensive? I mean, we got a lot of buyers out there right now.
And they're paying way over.
They're buying those houses.
Yeah. Man. And then I look at the sell side. Happening. I think about the seller side. They're saying, no, they're not high enough. We need to keep them going. So, it's interesting how crazy the market has been.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously over this last year, well, and I guess one thing to remind everybody out is, remember, real estate is local. So we're talking about the general market, and we can certainly touch on, our local market here in the Phoenix Metro. But remember, there's going to be some markets that are, more bubblicious than some other markets, you know what I mean? So there's some places that have run so far. There's some places that really haven't run that much. And we saw that, we've seen this all through time, but in any event, so yeah, everybody out there knows at this point, we've had quite a run in housing prices all across the country over this last year. So that question is, hey, are they too high now? Should I wait? So to give people some ideas here of what we're looking at, just general numbers, guys. So median house price in the U.S., so this is a national number right now, is about $363,000.
That alone's kind of crazy if you think about it, because what were we, 2 years ago? Was it 2 years ago we were breaking through 250? 265, 275 national average
ago, or so.
And I was like,
well, and then to your point, Keith, so that's up 23% in a year.
Yeah, that would make sense if it was closer to that 250 mark.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge.
That's massive.
And locally here, guys, in the Phoenix Metro, we're at $387.5 for our median price. So we're a little bit over that. And again, that's I think Phoenix is up 26% or so in the last year. So you hear numbers like that, up 23%, up 26% in a year, when the average here in Phoenix might be 6 to 8%. And yeah, it gets people concerned to go, hey, what are we doing here? Like this is crazy. So certainly we could say that, that 23% a year, that's not sustainable, right? No. I mean, that's not going to happen every year.
I mean, if it did, we're looking at a whole other problem.
Multi-million-dollar properties here, in no time. Exactly. But so that's one thing. I mean, they're not sustainable at that rate. But the question we're asking now is, okay, well, are they coming back down? Are we up too high right now? Should we wait? And that's a whole different question. And I think we started out, Keith, and I know you've got some thoughts on this when we're talking about your primary residence versus investment property. Not all real estate's the same. And you start with what kind of house are you buying? What are you trying to do with it?
Yeah, you gotta put yourself in a specific bucket. You really do, because I've had this conversation with clients of ours. I've had this conversation with friends, family, and it all comes down to the same thing. I actually get this question a lot more from someone that is currently renting and does not own a home. I actually get that question more. I feel like people looking at investment properties, they kind of have their own opinions at that point and they're already looking at different things. But I get the question of, is it the right time to buy? Is it going to crash? I feel like I'm going to be spending way too much money. And my question always to them first, the number one question I have, well, do you currently own your house right now? Or are you looking for an investment property? That's my question, because it does change your outlook on things dramatically if you're in a residential primary residence or if you're looking for an investment. And it's crazy that I get so many renters asking this question, because then I ask them, well, how expensive is your rent? How much money are you throwing away that way? Because you're spending money always with rental. There is no income there. There is no potential. There's no opportunity there. And
there's
so
no underlying asset.
There's nothing. There's no tax privileges. There's no advantages there. You're renting a house. It's a straight expense. In my opinion, and this is again my personal thought, and someone may, argue that or think otherwise, it is never a bad time to buy your primary. That's just my personal opinion, because you have to live somewhere always. You're never going to be without a house, right? So it's never a bad time, whether you're high or low, because you're going to be paying for rent one way or the other, or a mortgage. And I'd rather pay a mortgage no matter how much higher it is.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, like that you're saying, you're always going to have a housing expense.
Always.
Right? So that expense is either going towards rent or a mortgage, or even, if you've got people that go, well, you pay cash. Well, you still have an expense there. That cash isn't free. That means that you have money now that's sitting there idle that you can't do other things with, that you're using and missing out on whatever other opportunities that you have. So everything is an expense and has a cost in that thing when you're living in, or when you're looking at a primary residence. That is your housing expense. And so I think you and I are definitely on the same page to go, hey, when it's your primary residence, that's a housing expense. You're going to have a housing expense no matter whatever the situation is. You got to live somewhere, and it's going to cost you something. So yes, I always tell people, look, don't worry so much about it. If you can afford it, you certainly don't want to do something you can't afford. But if you can afford it, you're going to have a housing expense. So pick something you like, be in an area you want to be in, and go enjoy your life. And stop worrying about, so much with, is my primary residence a good investment? It's like, well, maybe you bought at the top, maybe you bought at the bottom, but at the end of the day, you got to have a place to live. Like either way, you're spending the money. So, but it's a little bit different when we're talking about investment property. Now we're talking about returns. We're talking about cash flow. We're talking about, what these levels are. So getting back to kind of to our original question there, are the prices too high now? And so people might look at that and go, hey, we've got these prices that are up 23, 25% in a year. Look at how high these prices are. And there's other factors that go into that to go, yeah, the nominal price has gone up, but are we really sure that they're more expensive? And that question, that answer there at that point doesn't, gets a little hazier. It's not so clear. It depends on kind of how you're measuring that and what you're looking at. And I think a big thing to look at is affordability. Okay. And what we mean by that, one of the things that we really like is First American Title's, Real House Price Index. So what that goes and what that entails, and I think this is a good alternative way. This is one of the alternative ways to look at it, but it's easy to wrap your mind around. What they look at is, where's the median income go? So let's say we're looking at the US over the last 5 years, 3 years, 10, 20 years. Where's the median income gone, and where's the interest gone for mortgage rates? Because, and the important thing when we're talking about affordability, as interest rates go down, affordability goes up. You can buy more house for the same amount. And just to make sure we're all on the same page out there, guys. So here's a perfect example so everyone can wrap their head around it, okay? rule of thumb is, 1% change in interest rates is about, roughly 10% change in value. So, or equals, I should say, 10% change in value. So what does that mean? And how does that relate to what we're seeing now? Okay. So we had COVID lockdowns, saw the Fed drop the interest rates down to zero, Fed funds rate. So we saw mortgage rates drop. Okay. Over the last year, we've seen that rate drop, average 30-year mortgage about 1%. Mm-hmm. So let's say it went from, we're a little lower than this, but let's round up. So we use the round numbers. Went from, say, 4% to an average of 3%. Okay, we saw a 1% drop. Well, if you're looking at, say, a $400,000 house, okay, and your mortgage payment on that was going to be $2,000 when you were at 4%. Now the interest rate drops to 3%. You can still, or how do I explain it? You can go now to a $440,000 house and still have your mortgage at $2,000. So it's, what is my payment? So part of the increase that we've seen out there, guys, and what people need to understand is we saw this drop in interest rates that pushed these prices up because people can afford more house for the exact same payment. The $2,000 payment a year ago and the $2,000 payment this year buys them a lot more house. So all of a sudden prices are going up. They can buy more.
And so that also, and you think about it, human nature, it's funny. They're not going to just take that $200, $250 discount on their mortgage. They're going to buy a bigger house because now they can afford more
for the same price.
It doesn't. That's American 101 right there. And I don't think that psyche is going to change anytime soon. What it also did, and this is why those prices continue to climb, is it opened up the door for people that couldn't afford a house prior that wouldn't hit those limits and hit those numbers. So there wasn't any houses at $1,200 a month because they couldn't get a rate that low. And now they have the opportunity to do so for a period of time. And then as those prices went up and they had to play catch up, that window closed on them very quickly. Right. And that's what we're seeing. So if you take that into effect, if you think about it, we looked at the 23% increase in price, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if a rate drops 1%, increasing values potentially close to 10% of affordability, or that price index that moves up that 10%. Well, think about it this way. Then theoretically, could you argue that prices really technically only went up naturally close to 13%?
Bingo. So
13%?
That's probably more what we're seeing when we look at some of these prices compared to, other assets, other commodities, real housing affordability. We see that the rate of increase, here in Arizona, which was still very high, compared to historically, but it was more of, 10 to 15%, real increase, not 13%? A 25% increase, nationally, maybe a 10 to 13% increase, something like that. And so now, Keith, you hit it on the head. So now we've seen it. It's kind of, you had that window, it inflated up there, and inflation's a big key. And this is part of how we see it. And now you're going to see that, or we're already seeing it leveling off. And so, still going up with that leveling thing. So we're not going to see 23% again next year. It's leveling off to a more reasonable level because you've got, over this last year, we had a couple of other factors. Not only do we have those rates going down, but you've got people moving, a lot more people, I should say, than normal, moving from other states, migrating to, some of the Southwest and Southern states. And you already had a low supply that we were dealing with. We've been dealing with that low supply for several years. So you kind of factors those all together. But going back to are they too high? Let's look at some of the other things that are important here. And this is another way to kind of wrap your head around this thing. Your house payment as a percentage of your income has actually gone down over the last 3 years as rates decrease.
Whoa. Hold on.
Surprises people, right?
You said, just say that again, because I'm hearing down, and I haven't heard down. in years. Right?
House payments as a percentage of income has actually gone down over the last 3 years. So even though prices are going up.
So it's not necessarily the amount of your payment going down, because that's what people look at. They're looking at, what are you talking about, Pete? My payment went from $1,600 to $1,850. Yes, but based on income over the last few years, what were you making 5 years ago compared to what you're making now? Right. Plus the interest rates dropping compared to what they were back then. Yep. There's a lot of changes there.
So exactly. So people are thinking, well, I've got a bigger house, so I have a bigger loan. But like we just talked about, that loan payment might be exactly the same as it would have been a year ago for a more expensive, larger home now. And then, like you said, if you've gotten any wage increases, income increases over the last couple of years, you could have that $2,000 payment from 2 years ago is still a $2,000 payment today on a bigger, more expensive house. And now that represents a smaller portion of your income. So it's become more affordable. Now, obviously over this last year, we've had that increase. It wasn't as good as it was a year ago. Like we said, we're seeing that level out, but I don't think it's as crazy, as a lot of people are thinking right off the top of, everything's sky high and they're overvalued and things. It's like, not really, guys. We still have that crazy supply. We're certainly not going to see these levels of increases continue, but they're not, in my opinion, as crazy expensive as everybody's thinking they are.
Yeah, and so I guess it would be safe to say then affordability may have the largest impact on demand of anything, because in essence, demand is affordability. If you're having a more chance to afford more, demand rises when more people can afford more. Like, it's just one of those common things and those common threads. And I think it's important for people to understand, in an ever-changing economy, it's a big giant scale. Have you ever seen those spider scales? You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever seen those? They got four, like, it's like a big circle scale, and there's a bunch of like you see it in those old time scales, and they have those little platforms, and there's 8 of them all the way around an entire thing. And this thing is trying to stay perfectly balanced on one little corner, the little tip right in the middle, just trying to keep this big circular scale balanced. And if you put weight over here, the only natural thing, that scale is going to start to tip to the left. So something over here on the demand index is going to have to put some scale on there to keep it balanced. So if you think about it, these last 5 years, trying to keep a healthy economy has just been a big balancing act. If interest rates go down, then prices got to go up to balance it out. And if interest rates go up, then you know what? Prices are going to have to come down, or if demand diminishes, then, supply is going to change. Like, everything is a big balancing act in our economy. And we have to understand that just because one number looks really big doesn't mean we're out of balance. And that we're going to crash. It doesn't mean we're going to plummet through the ground. It just means we need to make sure those checks are in order, balancing us out on the other side.
Yep.
And that's key.
It is. Yep. Like you said, it's a little give and it's a little take on that. So, one of the other points though I want to touch on is, you like you said, let's say we've got some people out there renting or trying to buy that first time house right now, and they're like, what are you guys talking about? I can't afford anything else right now. Well, there was a window, Keith. You hit it. You hit the window. The nail on the head right there. If you guys have been watching any of our market update videos or doing any of this stuff, what have we been telling people the last year and a half? We keep telling them, don't wait, guys. It's not going to get cheaper. If you're thinking about doing it, if you're right there on the fence, do it now. It's only going to get more expensive. So you had those first-time home buyers who had this window over the last year and a half to go in and buy this house. Now, when the rates went down, all of a sudden their affordability became a little bit better to be able to afford some of that. But now, as we're seeing that level out again, we have, a little bit of an issue for the first-time home buyers and people at the lower end of that price spectrum, where there's just no supply. It's become more expensive to build there at the lower end. So you're not seeing builders coming in at that, and there isn't a ton of supply down there. So yeah, those people are having a tougher time, and that's more because there isn't enough supply there. So we've got more people trying to buy at that lower end than are available. And it's pushing those prices up even higher, making it tougher for those people. So, while we're talking about overall, the affordability is certainly there and has been better for the overall market. There are segments, and like I said, that lower end where it's tougher for people. It's tougher to get in there for the first time.
And I still, we start to look at the other parts of the market and other states and other regions in our country. And Arizona is creeping up. Like we were just talking about it. Arizona's sneaking up and trying to compete with some of these other big markets that we've always been a little timid for. And I think that's a big factor of, scaling yourself and saying, okay, well, maybe as long as we don't surpass California or we don't surpass some of these places, then we're okay a little bit and we're a little bit safer. And that is true. And so then I also look at some of these other markets that surpassed us. They started below us. We're growing. They surpassed us. Key in on the Boise market. Crazy. Ada County is more expensive than Phoenix is right now.
Yep.
They have gone. Their population has increased by 50% in 2 years. Population increased by 50%. They can't build fast up there either. They're having the same supply issues we are, and their prices are skyrocketing. And now their average price is higher than us.
Go figure.
less than 2 years ago, it was far beneath us.
Yep.
And now it's higher than us. So you start to see these other markets and these other swings. It's not just Arizona, guys. It's all over the place.
Absolutely. It's definitely not just Arizona. And that's what we talked about at the beginning. There's some markets around the country that are probably higher than they need to be. And I don't know enough about Boise to, say whether that one is or not. That's certainly not what we're talking about. But there are markets up there because everybody went up. Now there are some markets that will be able to sustain that. And Arizona, has had continues and had even a bigger population growth, industries and job growth here, incredibly low supply. So we're sitting in a good spot here, but there are places that, where their prices were going up and they didn't have all that. They didn't have a whole bunch of people coming in and, a whole bunch of, jobs, and maybe their supply isn't as low as some other areas. So there are places around the country to be careful of for sure. But one of the ways that we like to look at and talk to some of our investors and things when they're looking at, what they're buying, and, what I recommend for everybody, a good strategy is to always look at what that median price is in your area. So like we talk about Phoenix Metro, for us here, it's 387.5. So, you call it 375 to 400 range, give or take there a little bit. So if you stay around that range, if you're looking for investment properties and you can stay around that median, you're going to probably be okay, or at least fare better than most other people, whether the market's going up or down.
Yeah.
And the reason is, if you're near that median, you're going to be able to catch people moving up or down the price scale. So what I mean is, if things are going good, economy's going good, housing market's going good, you got people moving up in prices, moving up in houses, so you can catch people that were below the median coming up. Or, if things turn around, the economy starts going bad, housing market starts going bad, then you've got some people at the higher end that are scaling down, and you can catch them coming down the thing. So you've kind of got the whole market going either way, regardless of what's going on out there, as opposed to being at the high end or the low end. If you're at the low end, these are the people that are going to get hit first and get hit hardest. Yeah. And you're not going to have people all the way at the top wanting to live in some of these very low end houses. Conversely, at the very high end, that's great when times are good and those people want that. But when it's not,
who's renting?
Who's renting that? Yeah. They're going to say, I'm not going to go to that very top end. I'm going to go down a rung, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we definitely say that's a good thing to keep in mind, guys. If you stay around that median, if you're looking at those investment properties, you're probably going to be okay around there. You're certainly, like I said, going to do much better overall. But overall, Keith, I think on the affordability, like we talked about, affordability is still there. Rates staying low. Now, when and if, these rates go up in the future, I'm sure at some point they will, although we don't see that anytime real soon, then things might start to change. But at this point, it's still affordable.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the thing to keep in mind. Look at affordability more so, in essence, than necessarily what the actual price is. It's, do you feel comfortable with that payment? Can you afford that based on your income and where your situation is, especially as a primary? And as an investment, it's all about the numbers anyways. Does the numbers make sense? What does your mortgage on that property look like compared to what you're making through capital? And make that decision based on that, not necessarily what the price is. And I think that's what brings me to my next point. Are prices too high? I'd probably say no. Are prices too low? Absolutely not. I would probably put them in that upper middle. They're strong. They're strong trending prices, but they're not too high to worry about in my mind. And they're definitely not too low to worry about. That's just what the price is right now.
Yeah, especially when we have low supply. Certainly here, still near record lows here in Arizona and for a lot of the country. So, and don't forget, guys, right now, like we're talking about historically low interest rates, lock them in. 30-year fix, lock them in. You got that payment and you're locked in there. Chances are that payment's just going to become a smaller and smaller percentage of your income as time goes on if you lock in that low rate right now.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So cool. We appreciate everybody following us online and watching all our stuff. We're continuing trying to grow this platform. So please give us a review. We'd love the 5-star reviews and continue to bring good content to you guys. And as you guys have questions, please feel free to reach out at questions@kpeliteaz.com. We'd love to hear from you guys. Anything at all. We always love to just chat and just talk business, talk real estate. So please reach out. Love to meet you and talk to you about that. Again, follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and we will see you guys next time.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.